Hi guys, how are you? You look tired? Yeah, after lunch, lots of information. First of all, I just want to tell you that can you see that well? Yeah. I'm really happy to be here. I really like Angular. I use it all the time. It's something that I use personally. The company I work for uses personally. Like, we do a lot of things in Angular internally. First of all, my name is Damian Borba. I work for Braintree here in San Francisco. And now Braintree is owned by PayPal. So internally, in both companies, we use Angular a lot, as well as React. And any kind of new things, we have that freedom to try new things. And if it works, we have a lot of good stories about that. So if it works, it gets to the product. So if you go to PayPal or Braintree online, you see a lot of Angular stuff there. The first thing I'd like to tell you is that the title is to trick you guys. I don't know if it's true in the US, but I'm from Brazil, and I used to teach a lot of Phonegap Cordova classes there. And that scares people out. Like, when you mention Cordova, they don't know what that is. So how many people here already used Cordova somehow? New, like beginners on Cordova? Not all the people. Cool. That's cool. So if you need me, this is my Twitter handle. You can find me there. If you have any questions, you can ask, and I can get, if I don't know the answer, I can get that internally and get that to you. So I'm not going to spend too much time on telling the story about Cordova, because you guys know about that. So just a quick recap. Cordova is the open source distribution. A lot of companies are contributing to it, even like for refrigerators like LG and all those guys. It's very powerful, and you can very easily create mobile applications that look like native. They are native applications with one browser, with one web view, and target different users, which is awesome. And Phonegap is the Adobe distribution of Cordova with some services on top of. For example, Phonegap Build, Phonegap Enterprise, they also help developers along the way. So why am I here? Why am I talking about these things to you today? In Brazil and in different countries, I trained hundreds and hundreds of developers on Cordova over the years. And if you're interested in that training, you can go to phonegapbootcamp.io. It's a 20-hour training, and we go over configuring Cordova and then all the plugins that it has. It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. Very intensive 20 hours. And during those trainings for over almost 2 years now, I saw the most bizarre mistakes and errors and problems ever. So this talk is really to go over those things and help you once you see those problems on your way. So the whole idea that I have with this is that you come to a conference here like this, and you already have your developer toolbox. You have your tools, your knowledge, and everything. So hopefully, some of the things that I'm going to show you here will help you grow that toolbox. And it's something that I did with a lot of care. I spent a lot of time preparing this presentation, and I hope you guys like it. So this presentation is divided in 4 chapters. The first one, mobile commerce. So you're going to see some trends, some numbers that prove that there is a huge opportunity there for mobile developers, especially with Cordova. Then you're going to talk the real story about Cordova, and that it's not super fun, right? Like, I know you've been through the configuration problems and all those headaches. Once it's configured, like, don't touch the machine because it's there, it's done. And we're going to go over those very quickly. And then you're going to talk about some powerful libraries that can help you during the process. And in the end, we're going to create an app where you can very easily, using Braintree, it's an Angular app. We're going to use the Braintree API to integrate credit card payments, debit card payments, PayPal. That, for example, we have numbers in PayPal that show that just by adding the PayPal button, you get a huge conversion. Like, a lot of people buy more because they trust the brand and it's there. So with this, it's very easy. And even Bitcoin. So you can get Bitcoin working on your web applications. So let's start with chapter 1. So let me time this so I don't go over too much. Awesome. Chapter 1, the mobile commerce. Last year, $31.6 billion were generated in revenue as for mobile devices on purchases and everything. And that's only 11% of the total digital revenue that happened last year, which is not a lot. It's very minimum, right? So another thing, like just in the first 3 months of this year, it went up a little bit, so now it's 15% of the whole digital commerce around in this case, the US. And that, again, it's a very little thing. And all these numbers are on that study, so if you go there, you can see the full PDF. I'm going to have the slides here on my slide share after the presentation, so you can get those numbers and see the whole data. It's very interesting. What's interesting there is that now the majority of people, they spend more time on mobile devices when they're searching for things to buy than on desktop, which is super interesting. And the tricky part and the interesting thing here is that only 15% of those users finish the transaction on mobile devices. So something is really wrong here, right? There's a huge gap there. And then in this study, they spent the time asking questions, and they found out that security is the number one concern for that to happen, and all the other ones are related to UX. So like, for example, it's hard to see the product detail. Navigating between screens is complicated. So you see, it's a lot of problems that Angular apps can help, because we know we can create, especially with the libraries we have out there, it's easy. So it's very interesting, good data that prove that there's a huge opportunity there. So my question is there a solution? Can we tackle that opportunity in some certain way? And the answer is yes. Like, it's just a matter of understanding the user and working towards that. In this case, for this presentation, my solution would be a Cordova app using Angular and some plugins and all the Braintree services. But you can do it natively if you want. Even like Braintree native, I don't know if it adds to this, but if you use the native versions of our SDK, you can get Venmo integrated, you can get Apple Pay, Android Pay, all this with the Braintree SDKs, which is super helpful. So let's talk about the story with Cordova. This one is based on a true story, my story. I suffered a lot on teaching a lot of people and seeing very, very weird problems along the way. Again, the theory on Cordova is that you have your JavaScript, CSS, and HTML files. It can be local, it can be remote, but normally it's local, so it's packaged in the app. And then magically, Cordova can package that into a native app with just one web view, and that web view is smart enough to communicate with native code, so it can access camera, context, and all that. So that's the power of Cordova. And once you go to talks like Ionic talks or even like Phonegap, everyone tells it's beautiful, right? It's beautiful, it just works, and you do like Cordova, create, everything works. But then you get excited, and it happened to me, all right? I got super excited years ago on doing these things, and then you go to your computer and you try to, okay, this is a lot of fun, I'm gonna join this party. This is kind of the web developer that heard about this and wants to join. And then it's not very pleasant, right? I mean, you can get there, but it's not smooth. It's not a smooth ride, right? You get there in the end, but it's not super smooth. How many people here had no problems at all configuring Cordova? Oh, that's nice, because sometimes there's like superheroes that show up and say, no, we didn't have any problems. And it's fun to see that it happens as well. Okay, so this past week at work, I got 2 computers just to see like, okay, this can be right. Like, people like these things, people get excited about these things, and I think that the world deserves a talk when you go through the process and show it doesn't have to be painful, right? Once you know the process, you can go back and configure different computers and everything. So that's my plan here. So this week I spent 2 days collecting all the information. I got a MacBook Air and a Dell computer. It's not like a supercomputer. One has 4 gigs. The Windows one has 8 gigs, but it's Windows. So sorry, Windows users. How many Windows users here? Okay. Sorry with the jokes here, please. Okay, so first thing, let's turn on the computers. And that's what happened. I don't know if it was corporate, like the corporate computer or something, but it took me like 4 minutes to boot up on Windows, just like to turn on the computer. So I used to teach this class with other instructors, and there's one guy that always starts like his part saying that Windows developers, like developing on Windows is like living la vida loca, you know, because you see so many like crazy things that don't make any sense, right? And you had to be really, really brave to develop on Windows. And I tried, it was not pleasant, but you guys are really good developers. All right, so what is the first step? The first step is go to the website, cordova.apache.org, hit download, go all the way down, and he recommends you to use the CLI, the command line interface. You can go ahead and use the source, but then you have to do everything manually, right? You have to use all the binaries, all the executables to compile and everything. So the CLI helps you a lot. Another very important tip that I have is every time you search for something about Cordova and you go on Google or anything, as soon as you see that page, look top right, right? Because it happened to me a lot of times. You found the solution, and then you add that to your project, and then all of a sudden you see it's like a version that's super old, and it doesn't work. So first thing, look top right, and it helps a lot. And then moving forward, it tells you need to install Node and Git. It used to be more complex before, like you had Ant and different things, but now it's getting easier, and less dependencies are in place right now. So let's start with Node. So you go to the Node website, you download Node, and then on the Mac, everything kind of, it's a seamless process, right? You hit install, you go through the process, and then you go on your terminal, command space, terminal, and then you type Node, for example, version, it works. It's a nice developer experience, right? On Windows, on the other hand, you install everything, it tells you it's going to install it there, it tells you it's going to work, and then in my case, this week, I mean, it works sometimes, but this like work doesn't work thing kind of scares me a little bit. It's like extra things that you have to go through. So it didn't work. So it was a bad developer. So I went back and said, oh my God, maybe it's because I didn't add that to the path, right? Or it didn't get added to the path. So you go there, you click on Start button, and then you go to Computer, right-click, Properties, Advanced Settings, and then you get to this tons and tons of windows. Maybe that's why it's called Windows, right? Because you have to click here, and then you go to Environment Variables, and then you go on the System Variables, not the user here, the system one, and then you get to this part, and I don't know what was the problem was, but I saw it was added there, right? It was added there, but it didn't work, so what was the problem? Then, okay, just to play safe, I went back and I copied the location. I just placed, it's the same text, same everything, and then I hit the prompt there, and I typed Node, now everything works. And it was there. It was like, really? It's tricky, right? I don't know why it happened, but it happened this week. Sorry again, guys. It happens, and I see this so many times. All right, and then you go to Git, and it's not always like in favor of the Mac. In this case, it went better on Windows. So you go on Git, install Git, installs, and then you go to prompt, and you type Git, you have it, it's working. Now, Node and NPM can download everything via Git because it's installed. On the Mac, on the other hand, it's not that it doesn't work, but once you download and install everything, you go through all the process. The first thing that happens is if it's a new computer, you have to allow that to install things that are not from the App Store, right? That's very basic. And then every time you type Git on terminal, you see that it asks to install the Mac command line tools. And that has a very specific version of Git that it's not the one you installed. So to fix that and have a nice developer experience, you finish the installation, and then after installing everything, you go to your terminal, you create a new file with touch, and then .bash profile. That file gets loaded every time you open terminal. And then you enter the location where your Git is. And then you reload that via source.bash profile, and then everything works. So now you have access to the latest and the one you installed. So not a lot of people do that, but it's always good to have the latest version of Git. I really like it. Okay, next thing, install Cordova. So on Windows, now that you have Node and Git, you can do npm install -g-d Cordova. Everything works. Cordova installs, right? That's the CLI that has all the commands that save you from doing a lot of things. On the Mac, on the other hand, you type npm install Cordova -g, and then you get this warning, like this error saying that you have to be a super user in order to have to do that, to place files inside that npm folder. How many people have this problem? Not problem, but restriction. How many people fixed it already? Okay, so it's like, and some people did nothing. It's like, they don't do that. Okay, and when it happens, it's like, you don't want to type sudo all the time, right? And then enter your password for every single npm installation globally. You want to be more productive. And turns out it's very easy to fix that. It's just a matter of enabling that, changing the ownership of that folder and all the subfolders to your user. And to do that, you type sudo chown, which is change ownership recursively, so -r, and then your username. So if you don't know your username, just type on terminal who I am, and you get your username. And then you change the ownership of that local file, that local folder, and everything starts to work. So moving forward, you just type npm, and then install everything, no problems at all. And then you can create new things, new projects in Cordova very easily. So you guys know this, right? How many people already created apps with Cordova here, just for me to see? Do you guys want to see how to do that? Or I can move forward and... Can I do that? It's move forward or move? Okay, cool. So just... I'm not going to do that, but if you want to create, now that you have Cordova, the CLI installed, it's just a matter of going to the terminal, Cordova create, and then the folder that's going to be created and have your app, and then the reverse domain, like to the ID of your app. You can have numbers and you can't have numbers and everything, and then your app name. If you want space in your app name, you do it this way, and then you go to the config.xml later on, and you can change that and add the space. But here, you can have spaces. And then you add the platforms, you add the plugins, and you can start moving forward. But then if you need to build and have those apps running on devices or on the simulator, you have to configure the SDK, right? And it's not super fun. It has you have to download some files. So starting with Android. It's pretty much the same process for Windows and Mac. It's exactly the same process. First of all, you download the JDK 7 or higher. That comes with the JRE. And you download, install that, and then you download and install Android Studio. You can download just the SDK if you want. It works to build things, but if you want to publish to the store and everything, it's a little trickier, and Android Studio helps you a lot there, right? And then you need to add 2 folders to your path, to your system path. Just like we saw we did with Git on the Mac and with the environment variables with Windows, you just need to add tools and platform tools. And another important point, for this version of Cordova, the one that's now, it's 5.1.1, you have to use the API 22 and the build tools 19 and plus. It keeps changing, but that's what you need. So go there, download the JDK, then download Android Studio. I really wanted to make this as a good reference for new people getting to Cordova as well. And then you add to the path on the Mac, and then same thing on Windows, and then all of a sudden you can start creating apps, everything works fine, right? All right, how many people here debug apps on real devices? Let's say you create an app and then you debug. What do you do normally? What's the process you do like to debug your app? Let's say here you, on iOS you use Safari, and on Android? X? But for Cordova? Yeah, that's true. So to build the application after everything is configured, you go to Cordova build Android, and then it builds that. If you want to run on the device, it's Cordova run Android. I have it here. In the end, I'll show it how to do that. And then if you want to inspect it, I'll do it very quickly here. So let me get I'll turn mirroring on so we can see that. Okay. So let's say I have a new window here, and then I'll go to my desktop. And then to create an app, just like we saw that before, create app folder, the folder that's going to be created, so this folder doesn't exist, and then your ID, and then the app name. Once you create that, then you enter that folder, and you can add platforms. Cordova, platform, add, then iOS, Android. Let's do Android first. Sorry? If you want, but you can do it later. I just did Android first because I want to show you how it works, so you can do Cordova run. Just make sure you have an Android phone connected. I really recommend, like for real world cases, to use devices because the simulator on Android it's not realistic. It's very, very painful. Then you do Cordova and run Android. It builds it, and then it runs on the device. So while it's building here, let's open Chrome. And I will show when it's open. Okay, build succeeded. Now I have it running on my phone. And now I can go to Chrome because it's connected via USB. And I can inspect by going to this location. And now it's just like, it's DevTools. I can do everything. And the cool thing is that if I do things on the phone here, I can see it happening here. And I can also type, interact with things here, and it happens on the phone. So that's really, really powerful. That's for Android. For iOS, first of all, you add the platform. As of last night, there's a problem with the new plugin, the whitelist plugin, the new version, this guy here. Where's the name here? This guy here. Because the new version depends on Cordova iOS 4. That's not released yet, so you have to manually add this plugin. Cordova plugin, add, whitelist, and you need to go back one version, and then everything works. So it's fixed already. I just saw the website, the bug is fixed. They're just waiting for the next release to make it happen. And then to run on the simulator, you do Cordova run. I'm getting ahead of my slides here, but that's Android. On iOS, the first thing, you have to have a Mac, right? You can't do that on Windows. You can develop on Windows, but then you have to have a service like Ionic or Phonegap build that can help you get there. And you need Xcode, and you need the command line tools, the ones I mentioned before. So to get the command line tools installed, just type Xcode --select --install, and to run on simulators, you need to use the package iOS sim for simulator, and to run on devices, you need iOS deploy. So I can, after installing this, guys, I can go back to my terminal, and I want to say I want to run iOS on my simulator. So it opens the simulator here once it's finished. Run succeeded. So it's the same. Now it's huge. It's the same thing that we saw there on Android, but now it's running here on the simulator. And to debug this guy, like you guys mentioned, I just need to go to Safari, and then with that guy open, I can see iOS simulator, and then I can access the index, just like I did with Chrome. And I can debug here. So I don't need to have any other tool to do that. I can do it all from Safari and Chrome there. Cool. All right. So on the device, then, it's just Cordova run iOS -- device, and it runs on the device. Okay, moving forward, just like I showed you. Now I think you're in a happy place where things are working, and it was not that painful, right? So if you follow those steps, sometimes pretty much all the errors are there. All the errors you can encounter are there, and you don't have to suffer moving forward. So that was the main idea of doing this. And let me see the progress here. Trying to get used to this Apple Watch. Okay, very good. Awesome. So chapter 3, powerful libraries and frameworks. Now that we know how to run Cordova applications, configure and run Cordova applications on iOS and Android, I can now use libraries. And this is very, used to be very slow. I did a lot of talks on performance in the past, and it used to be very slow. But now I'm seeing a lot of progress with some frameworks and libraries, and it's getting to a point that I think that next year, maybe in 2 years, it's going to be impossible to notice if it's native or web. I think we're really getting to that point right now. So the first one I really recommend is Ionic. I used to be very, I don't know, I didn't like in the very, very beginning, but now these guys are doing an amazing job. It's extremely powerful, easy to use. You just need to have their CLI that's built on top of Cordova. So now that we have Cordova installed, it's very easy to run Ionic apps, so you don't have to go through all those problems. They have a pixel-perfect UI, so if your app runs on Android, it uses the Android CSS. If it runs on iOS, it uses the iOS CSS. So it adapts to it, and it makes the user experience very, very good. Again, it has a powerful CLI. One of the features that I like the most is resources. Have you guys used resources already? So if you type Ionic resources, it's going to use one image as your base image, and it's going to generate all the splash screens and all the icons for all the different sizes for you automatically. And I thought that was running locally, but it actually is running on their cloud. So it's actually transferring those files, and it's free. So that saves a lot of design time, right, when you need to create icons and splash screens, especially for Cordova, because you have, I think, around 50 to different sizes to work. Also, this lab is awesome, so you can do Ionic serve -- lab, and then you can see in one browser, in your browser, you can see the iOS version and the Android version, and you can, as soon as you save your file on your text editor and your code editor, it live reloads, and it makes development very, very fast. And they have a lot of new services: analytics, deploy, push. So if you need those services, they have it. Terrence back there is going to give an workshop tomorrow, right, Terrence? Yeah. Tomorrow, so if you're interested, it's very, very good. And they focus on performance, so all the animations are using CSS, good and CSS transitions, and it's built with Angular, so if you know Angular already, it's going to be very easy to use Ionic. So this is what I was talking about. When you hit Ionic serve -- lab, you get these two UIs. They're just two iframes, and then you can see how things behave, and it's very, very powerful. In this case, you're seeing a tabs app, but you see that it follows different guidelines. So on iOS, the tabs are on the bottom, and on Android, they're on the top. So that saves a lot of time. Another project that I really like is the Angular Material project. Have you heard of it, used it? It's very, very powerful, and last week I went to Google there and they showed new components that they built. So let's see if I can show you guys. So chips, so you can type new things. And it's very, very easy to integrate. It's it's very simple directives you can add to your code and you get that behavior. Also this fab built by the community, so powerful thing there. You can also scale. Input, I really like the way following the material design guidelines. For example, once you have a text field here, for example, first name, sometimes you have that placeholder first name, and then as you type, it goes away so you don't remember what you're typing. In this case, it goes to the top, and this is all JavaScript, and it has validation, and it's very, very powerful. Plus a lot of things here. I used Ionic and material design for a hackathon in New York, and we won 2 categories. We did it in 24 hours. It was awesome because of these frameworks and libraries. So I highly recommend Angular Material as well. And then there's NG Cordova, which is, again, another awesome service that can help you to get all the code to interact with the native plugins very, very easily. So once you go there, let me show you quickly. ngcordova.com, and you can see all the plugins that they have here, and a lot of things like camera, Touch ID, OAuth, which is painful to build, right? It's not easy. But then they have this custom build thing, which is amazing. Let's say I want to use the camera. Once I hit that and I hit build, it's going to create for me an Angular service, a factory, where, let's open here, a factory that I can add to my main app, to my main module, and then I can call this service and get the camera to work and get that as a promise. So it builds all this code. You could go ahead and use just this part, which is the camera portion of it, but it wraps it in a service that makes your life a lot easier and modularized. Cool. Moving forward, last chapter. Let's see how we're doing with time. Okay. 10 minutes. So now that you know how to configure Cordova, use nice libraries, you know some painful points, you're not there anymore. Now it's the last portion. How can we tackle that initial problem, the initial opportunity that we saw that it's in the market right now where people are not finishing the transactions there. So now we're going to see how to accept cards, debit cards and credit cards, PayPal, and Bitcoin in a simple application. Just to give you an idea, and this could be a whole talk about the complexity of the payment system, the online and the digital payment system. It's very complex. There is a ton of different entities managing different things, managing different complexities. You can go ahead and try to implement everything on your own, but you're going to kill yourself, I promise. And it's very hard. And on top of that, we have, well, it's called Pci Compliance. So every time you sell something online, you have to be PCI compliant. So you have to follow a lot of rules. So the payment card industry, they came up with a lot of rules, and depending on how much money you make, more audits are made on you, and you have to explain everything. So, for example, one of the rules is you can't save customers' information on your end. It has to be in this very safe location and everything. So in the case of Braintree, the users, the developers, you don't save the credit card information. Everything goes to Braintree, encrypted, and that's saved there. Uber uses it, Airbnb uses it, so a lot of big companies use Braintree to be that safe and PCI compliant place for them. And there's one product that we have called V0, which enables you very easily to integrate payments to your application. So this is a sample app that we're going to build. It's Angular material, and it looks like a very pretty app, right? You can take credit cards, you can take PayPal, and even Bitcoin. And the nice thing about this is it's not running on your side. This is just an iframe that's connected to your application. So everything that's in this white box is on Braintree. And you have ways of interacting with it. You have ways of, for example, if you type a specific credit card number here, it knows it's Visa because it starts with 41. So, for example, if you go to websites nowadays, some websites ask you to select the credit card type. And that's not necessary because by looking at the numbers, you can tell that. They're just lazy on implementing that. Same thing for date, and depending on the card, the security code changes, the name changes. And what's the complexity there, right? So you need to configure your UI, you need to configure your backend. In this case, we're going to use Node, and then your Node application is going to talk to Braintree to process everything. And that's the main idea here. You have other options there. You have Ruby, PHP, everything, even .NET if you want, and a lot of different SDKs, like I mentioned in the beginning, for native and stuff. So the regular way of implementing this as a regular web developer would be, okay, let's set up the node place. I just install Braintree. I require Braintree. Then I can use a template system here, in this case EJX, to generate a web page and then serve that to the client. And then every time the user hits buy or purchase, it talks to Braintree, tokenizes everything. So this side here, Node and HTML, they never have sensitive information. Everything's saved here in Braintree. So in your Node application, you just need to, after you create a sandbox account, you just set up your credentials. Then you request a token. Once you have that token, that Braintree gives that token to you, then you just render that template and it displays the page. The HTML that's going to be generated is just this. So somewhere in your page, you have to have a special div with any ID you want. In this case, it's checkout, but it could be Angular. And then down here, you have to specify where your iframe will be placed. And that's it. That's the regular way of doing it. But we are Angular developers. You're awesome developers. So how can we make everything Angular on the client side? So in this case, it's going to be a little bit different. Our Angular app, our client side, will hold the token, will hold that information. Again, it's all encrypted. There's no problems there. And we can do the same thing. So the way you achieve that is by creating the same div, same special ID, and then import the UI Braintree.js library there. On your Node side, on your Node, just for the authentication, same thing, your credentials as a merchant. And then you have to define route. So the first route I'm creating here is one to generate a token. So your Angular app goes to that route, and then that route generates a token with Braintree and sends that token back to your client, to your Angular app. Then your Angular app, after hitting that token and getting the success, getting that token, you can then do something. You can do a sale, you can do whatever you want. In this case, I'm doing a simple sale, passing the amount that's being sent via that form, and with this guy called nonce. So you're going to see when it works that as soon as I go through the authentication process, the UI gives me back, the Braintree.js gives me back this nonce. And this is encrypted. This is everything that's necessary in order to make transactions with Braintree. With that nonce, you can do whatever you want. And every time you do, you get a new nonce. And then after you get the nonce, you have the nonce, you can then do a simple sale. In this case, I'm generating a sale, transaction sale, and I pass the amount and the payment nonce that I had, and then everything works. To see this in action, I can show you what I have. So let me close this. All right. I'm going to have all this on my GitHub later. So let me close this. I first need to start my Node server. If you see the Node code here, it's very, very simple. It has exactly the things I showed you there. So that your credentials, and then you need cores in order to serve different clients, and then it returns to Angular the token. With that token, then Angular can hit the second route to process the transaction. And then here I have my Angular app that I can show here in action. And in this case, I'm using brackets. Again, very simple, just that this is the special div, and I'm importing the Braintree.js. That's all it does. And then I need to start the server. Let's see if it's working. Whoops. Let's see if I'm on the right guy. CD, and then I go here. npm start. Oh, maybe it changed the IP. Let's see, 1 second. Yeah, it did. So, because I'm working on the phone as well, I could use localhost, but I'm using the IP, so I just need to fix it very quickly here. So I can open the server. I'm going to open this. Dropping.js. It's 2. It's 2. Perfect. Now I can go back. Now it's targeting the right guy. I need to restart Node, right? Nice. So this is the Angular app I mentioned. I can type the amount. Let's say it's 10. I can type the credit card information. And you see as I type, it validates everything. It knows it's the right guy. I can do the expiration date and the verification code. I can hit pay now. Everything works. And then Braintree gives me back a lot of information about this transaction that I can use. And if I go to my control panel, let's see here, Braintree. I can log in. I can go to my Sandbox account. See my time here. Cool. Log in. I see now that I have that transaction there. So I can set up a lot of things in this dashboard. I can set up subscriptions. I can save credit card information for future transactions and everything. It's very powerful. If I need to use a different payment method, let's say I want to use PayPal. I type the amount. I hit PayPal. So now it goes through all the process. I can type my credentials. I agree. Now it tokenizes that, and now I have that nonce on my Angular app. So if I hit pay now, it's paid, and if I refresh this, now, come on. Yeah, I have that in. So very easily. And let's say I need to make this, just to close this presentation, I need to make this a Cordova app. I can go to this place, which is my guy here. I can do Cordova, create, let's do app, and then app name. Then I can enter here. And I can add, let's do iOS so I can see in the simulator. Cordova platform, add iOS. It's going to complain about the same thing. That guy, we're going to install that, so there's no problems. Cool. Now I can do Cordova run iOS simulator to see this on the simulator. Simple Cordova app. Just to give you a very quick, I'll add Android. And if you see here, this is the folder that got created when I did Cordova create. And if you see here, this is where everything, all the base files are, your index. This is everything that's being displayed inside that web view. And in platforms, you have iOS. What happened here? Cordova, Cordova platform, add Android. Cool. You see that this is an Eclipse project, an Android project, and this is an Xcode project. That's all there is to it. It's very simple. So you can change the contents here, because if you do that, every time you do run, it's going to get all the files that are here, and they're going to be sent to this, and it's going to overwrite everything here. You don't want that. So you just need to change the contents here. I had my web app with those files. I can copy all this, and then I can go to the root there, the www, replace everything with my local files, my CSS, my JavaScript, and then rerun this, Cordova run iOS simulator. And I can do the same thing. Now it's running in the simulator. I can do 10. Let's say I want to use PayPal. And now it's smart enough to know that this can't have different windows, because it's going to break Cordova if it has different windows. It's just one web view. So it's using a modal view just for iOS and Android web views. That saves a lot of problems. So everything here is the same. I need to have a valid email. Let's do shift. Come on. Come on. Let's try again. Okay. Then it creates the announce. Then you can pay. Oh, I forgot the amount there, so it's telling me I need the amount. But you get the idea, right? It's the same process that we saw right there before. So that's how you can take credit cards, PayPal, and Bitcoin. And if you do it natively, you can get even more. A quick review of everything we saw. Huge opportunity with mobile commerce on making it easy for people to finish the transactions on mobile devices. Cordova is normally a painful story, like to configure, but it doesn't have to be if you follow the steps, and it's going to work. You have amazing libraries and frameworks to help you along the way, and with Braintree, in this case, you can accept cards, PayPal, and Bitcoin. I hope your toolbox is a little bit bigger now, and if you have any question, please let me know. Thank you, guys.